My friend Rick was married and already had a little boy when he came to a full appreciation of his sexuality, and he came out, first to himself and then to his wife. And she did not consider this to be the best news that she had ever heard in her life. In fact, she was very bitter about it, and yet through a lot of misery and difficult scenes, Rick really tried to keep a balance because he always wanted to maintain a good relationship with his son. And time passed and things got better. His ex-wife remarried. And so Rick was very surprised one day to get an absolutely wild phone call from her. She was beside herself. "Well, I hope you're happy. You've ruined your son's life. His life is miserable. He can't go to school. He can't get up in the morning. He can't sleep." Rick said, "What happened? What's the matter?" She said, "All the kids in the schoolyard are harassing him. Your father is a fairy. Your father is a fag. Hey, you little fag, you're going to grow up to be a fairy like your father?" Well, Rick was, of course, very upset, and so he determined that what he needed to do was have a man-to-man with his son. I guess he was in the first or second grade at that time. So he picked the little boy up after school. They went out for an ice cream soda, and they had a nice talk. Then he brought his boy home, sent him upstairs to do homework, and he sat down in the living room with his ex-wife. She said, "Well, I hope you've accomplished something because this can't go on. They're driving him crazy. It's just terrible with all the name-calling." And Rick said, "Well, the first thing we're going to have to talk about is the fact that when they tell him his father is a fairy, they're referring to your new husband." Well, we've had a very checkered career in our relationships with children because of stereotypes and misinformation and the idea that a lot of people have that we somehow can influence a child's sexuality. Of course, if that were true, we'd probably all be straight. But gay and lesbian people do have children and do want very much to have their own biological children and to adopt children who are unwanted in other situations. And so I have a great deal of respect for people like Virginia Uribe on the West Coast or Joyce Hunter in New York City who work with kids who are lesbian and gay and don't get the counseling they need. We have a tremendous teen suicide problem in this country that largely stems from our community, and when people get serious in looking at that, maybe we can start to solve it. Of course, the phenomenon that's most interesting to me now is how many lesbians are choosing motherhood by artificial insemination or other means. And so I was delighted last year in New York when friends of mine and Stephanie became the parents of a beautiful baby boy, little Nick, who loves to snuggle down into a leather jacket. And he's probably going to be spoiled rotten very soon if he isn't already, with all the fussing over him. But the thing that gave us so much pleasure was to realize that both of his mother's names are on his birth certificate. And so you kind of have to force yourself to remember that there are so many kids who are not so very wanted and so very loved. When we go to pride events, we always see those signs that say, "We are your children." But the truth is, we're not. We're the grown-ups now, and it's our responsibility, I think, to smooth the way for those who come after us.